What's up, everybody? Chozo Nomad here with a little bit more KSP action. Right now I'm in the middle of a Sparrow drone transfer from the KFS Jebel to the KFS Tesla, just so the KFS Tesla can begin preparing for her trip to Duna. That's right. I've played in this little system with these ships enough, and they seem fairly competent of getting, from the moon to Minmus and all that stuff without need of refueling or like extra fuel tanks or anything like that. So I'm going to try to get this thing to Duna, and hopefully it doesn't get stranded out there in foreverness, because that would be really crappy. This isn't going to be a particularly interesting episode. I'm not going to be doing too much right now. Just preparing to get to Duna, as the title said. Prepping for Duna. It's fairly obvious. So it's just going to be mostly logistics. Me getting back to Kerbin so the Tesla can get some refueling going, and all that. However, there is one thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to send a ship out there to scout out Duna first. A very, very experimental ship, and I'll show it to you here in a little bit. It's going to be using lots of ion drives. Yes, so a lot of patience will be needed when trying to get this thing out there. But right now I'm just trying to dock this guy. It's very crucial to do very minute movements whenever you're trying to dock something. Never trying to overcorrect or use too much RCS. In fact, if you're using something tiny, it's best to not use RCS at all, unless you've got some fairly large lateral movements you're trying to take care of. Because you can see I'm just slowly letting it drift down in there so I can get that docking port in. Just use some rotational torque without RCS, otherwise you're going to go crazy. And just slowly kind of inch your way into wherever you're going. It's also important to keep changing the angles of where you're looking, because you may be good one way, but when you look at it from a different direction, you're going to get something completely different. Be like, holy crap, I'm completely off right now. So right now I'm just going to kind of inch this guy in here. In a few seconds, about 3, 2, 1, half a second, third of a second, 1,000th of a second, and there we go. Alright, now that guy successfully attached himself to the KFS Tesla. I'm going to jump to my experimental drone ship. That's right. The engineers down on Kerbin have designed this guy. Voila. I apologize if it seems a little bit laggy. This thing does have a very high part count. As such, I'm probably not going to be doing too many videos with it because it's so laggy. Maybe once the 0.2 update hits. I've recorded this before the 0.2 update did hit. It's actually up now. But anyway, hopefully that the performance improvements will allow me to do a little bit more footage. I mean, it is a cool looking ship. I do like the way it looks. But it's not very practical given the number of ion drives it has and how many pieces it has. It's also designed to establish satellite networks around solar bodies. It's got about 30 satellites on there, each one with a little Oscar B fuel tank and a little ant engine. Yeah. Because ion drives, as you know, take an absurd amount of power, I put an absurd number of solar panels on this guy. And thankfully, they don't have clipping issues with the satellites on the edges, otherwise that'd be really sad and this thing probably would have exploded already. I've actually already dumped off 2 of the satellite packages, one around the moon, and then you'll see one here in a minute. It's on its way to Minmus. Because this ship can't slow down very well, the satellites themselves have to do the slowing down, otherwise this ship would take forever to do anything. I mean, it already does take forever to do anything, but let's jump back to this guy. I'm just gonna go ahead and start planning my maneuvers here in a bit. Thankfully, the addition of the drone inline on the spine of the ship makes it much easier to handle than with the KFS Jebel when I had. Goodness. Where was I? Oh yeah. With the KFS Jebel, the 2 that were on the flanks of it threw it off so much, but having this one in line with the ship actually makes it much easier to control. I can power it up to about 90% power without doing anything crazy, which is nice. I like it when ships don't do crazy things. So yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and start my burn here in a minute, and we'll do this aero braking maneuver and carry on from there. You know, I'm really glad the re-entry effects don't cause any damage yet, because I'm fairly sure my ships would explode. Fairly sure. Alright, here we are. I'm getting ready to dock with my fueling station. I might throw this up in the description if you guys are interested in having a easy to deploy fuel station, because it's a very simple mechanism. I think it's a like 3-stage satellite thing, and it's enough to refuel. I mean, I've refueled this ship 2 or 3 times from it already. Maybe not completely from scratch, but you know, enough to get it back up to scratch to hop from the moon to Minmus and back again. So it has a fairly long lifespan, and you have 2 other options you can do with it too. Like once it runs out, you can either just be not fun about it and burn the opposite direction, crash it into the ground, or you can do the cool way and bring something back up to it to refuel it, like you actually would if you were trying to sustain some kind of reusable fuel program. Also, it does come equipped with a little a orbital recovery module, which you'll see here in a minute. But unfortunately, because the lunar recovery module, I keep calling it that. Anyway, the orbital recovery module, it has a bunch of RCS on it, like a bunch of RCS thrusters, and once it's attached to the fuel depot, it tends to throw off its center of thrust if you're ever trying to do like micro maneuvering. Because that's the important thing, is if you're ever trying to do very specific maneuvering actions, you want your center of thrust to be very close to your center of mass with your ship. Which is one of the problems I'm having with my frigates, is the fact that my RCS ports aren't exactly aligned. So every time I try and get close to something, it's basically impossible to do micro maneuvering. So I drop off the recovery module here, and I just take control of the refueling station, and it's got perfectly aligned RCS, so it's very easy to control. Very easy, makes docking with other things very simple. Goodness, excuse me. I had a Angus burger for dinner, and it's making me burp like crazy. Anyway, so yeah, I just dropped that off to keep my center of mass nice and normalized. I don't have to do anything weird and funky trying to get these things aligned. But like with the thing you saw earlier in this video, the Sparrow drone, you want to do very small maneuvers when you're this close to anything. I mean, because if you try anything radical, you're gonna end up shooting off into space like thousands of meters off in the very wrong direction. And this maneuver here actually took me about a half hour to complete, simply because of all the velocities you have to account for and all the aborted attempts that I had to do. And this is a fortunate oversight for me, a fortunate one, because I added the nose cone adapters to the end of this fueling depot, so it could attach to, you know, oddly shaped things. And I didn't realize it when I designed this thing, but the KFS Tesla, the shroud of the armor, actually overtakes the port there a little bit. So if I hadn't added this little nose cone, and it was just plugged it straight on top of the lander can, I wouldn't have been able to actually do this, at least from the nose. I might have been able to get up from the belly, because I have 2 other large docking ports on the belly that I might have been able to get to, but this is just simpler and it looks cooler. Yeah, it's very nice of them to have the magnetic couplers in there as well, so it can actually connect without you having to do too much craziness. But yeah, it connects, as you can see, which is, you know, killing my frame rate being this close to Kerbin and having this many parts going, because like I've told you guys before, I have a very crappy laptop, a little $400 laptop. So let's just hop over to the lunar, I did it again, orbital recovery module, and let's get this guy back over there. And unfortunately, due to my lack of foresight, I drained all of the RCS fuel out of it in an attempt to try and like equalize my center of mass, because I figured this guy wasn't going to need RCS, and I was horribly wrong. You guys aren't going to see the whole 15-20 minutes of frustration and hair-pulling anger that it took me to try and get this thing back to the fueling depot. So you'll just see me dock in with it all nice and pretty here in just a few seconds. But you know, RCS, I'm definitely going to put some RCS fuel back in this if I ever try this maneuver again. And here we are. Bink! Nice and simple. You guys, like I said, you guys missed all that fun frustration. Let's just go ahead and refuel everything. If you have something with a bunch of like these little RCS tanks, the small ones, be sure all of them are full, because if you don't disable crossfeed, all of your RCS ports are going to drain from every RCS source at the same time. It's not like liquid fuel tanks, where it drains from one and then goes to the next and then goes to the next. It'll just drain them all at the same time. So you got to be very careful about that if you're trying to plan long-term maneuvers or anything like that. Well, that's it for now, and I'll see you next time.